And that's the spirit. That's the spirit of the kind of politics I've tried to practice in the state legislature, the kind of politics that I've tried to practice in the United States Senate, and the kind of politics that I hope to be engaged in a campaign over the next year to win the Democratic nomination for the President of the United States. But here's the thing. I can't do it alone. No, listen up, because this is important. People have been asking me, what is it that is attracting all these crowds? And my wife asks me this all the time. She keeps on thinking that, you know, what is Prince playing, and you're like the warm-up act, or she can't understand why it is that folks are coming out. And what I've tried to tell her, and what I want to tell you today, is this crowd is not about me. It's about you. I've become a receptacle, or a vehicle for your hopes and your dreams. But I can only carry it so far. Ultimately, it's going to be you who are going to carry it forward. It's going to be you that makes the decision that you want to see a transformation, not just in this country, but around the world. Yeah. And Lord knows we need that transformation, because we are at a crossroads in this country domestically, and we're at a crossroads internationally. And I don't have to give you all the facts. You see them on television, you read about them every day. We've got a healthcare system that is broken. And many of you may be on healthcare here at school, maybe on your parents' healthcare, but particularly young people, once they enter the job market, discover that it's not so easy getting healthcare. And if you get sick, it can potentially bankrupt you. And then imagine if you're a mother or a father that doesn't have healthcare, and you see your child get sick, and you've got to take them to the emergency room, and they turn you away because you don't have health insurance. Been there. And a lot of people have. And you wonder, why is it that we can't do something about that? It's not a technical problem. It's not that we don't spend enough money on health care. It's that we have not exerted the political will to transform the system so that everybody has basic, decent health care all across America. You know the cost of higher education. You understand that in the midst of globalization, you need a college education and beyond if you're going to be able to compete, not just against folks in California or Texas, but folks in Beijing or Bangalore. And yet, what does Congress do? Instead of making student loans cheaper, they make them more expensive. Instead of cutting out the middleman so that young people can have access to more education, we continue to fatten the profits of banks who serve as middlemen for no purpose because of the politics of Washington. People understand that our education system, for many people, is broken. And they're young people just as talented as you, just as deserving of you, all across the country that never get a shot. That start off in schools that are broken down with inadequate textbooks and rats outnumbering computers. This generation, more than anybody, understands that unless we have a serious energy policy, we may not have a future. That not only does it cripple our economy, not only does it threaten our national security, but it actually threatens the very well-being of our planet. And so you look at that and you say, well, why can't we do something about that? Why can't we make a difference? And the answer is you can't. You know, I wrote a book titled The Audacity of Hope. And some people ask me, some folks ask me, where did I get the title? And I told him I actually got the title from my pastor in Chicago named Dr. Jeremiah A. Wright Jr. And I did not grow up in a church. But when I was a community organizer, that's when I joined this church. And I walked in one day and he gave a sermon titled The Audacity of Hope. And the idea that he offered was very simple. He said, you know, the easiest thing to do in life is to be cynical. The easiest thing to do in life is to say nothing's going to change, you can't make a difference, the world is as it is. You look around, you see famine and poverty and despair and cruelty and injustice. There's nothing we can do about it. But here's the idea, he said. What's truly audacious, what requires risk and boldness and courage, is hope. The belief that, in fact, the world as it is not the world as it has to be. That it's possible, just possible, that if each of us get over the fears and constraints and inhibitions to our imagination and decide to work together, that we can completely transform this place. And I love that idea of the audacity of hope, because not only did I love it for myself, because it told me that, you know, to be hopeful is not to be blind to problems, it's to look squarely at problems and decide that we can solve them. To face up to injustice and racism and poverty and war. But it's also because the history of this country, to some degree, has been built on that audacity. I mean, think about it. This country started with a bunch of ragtag colonies deciding to overthrow the nation on earth and start their own country. And then when they decided to start their own country, they said, you know what, we're not going to do like they do back in Europe. We're not going to have feudalism and monarchy. We're going to have this government of and by and for the people. And then somebody noticed, well, you know what, you've got slavery on your shores, and I guess that's how it's got to be. You can't change that. But some people said, no. We actually think that we can transform this and create a more perfect union. And so a civil war was fought. And people marched, and people spoke out, and people went to jail in order to create that more perfect union. And then some people said, well, we noticed that women can't vote. And you know women weren't going to take that, because they understood, you know, we're smarter than these guys are, and they're work harder than we do. So they started marching and agitating until they got the right to vote. And at each and every juncture of our history, somebody's been audacious enough to say, we can do something different. And more often than not, it's been young people who've done it. When a Vietnam War was being fought that people realized made no sense and was destroying our credibility in the world, there was young people who stood up and said enough. And when Jim Crow still was the law of the land in half of this nation, it was young people who got on buses and went down south to register voters in the park. And the same thing is true today. It hasn't changed. We have a war today in which we should have never waged it, and our leaders don't know how to end it. And you need to help. Young people have to get involved. We have an economy that is serving the not the many. Policy of debt and decline unless we make some difficult decisions around issues like health care and making sure that our prosperity is spread all throughout the economy. It's not going to change unless young people change it. We've got a problem of climate change that may be more threatening to our civilization than anything in my lifetime or your lifetime, and you are going to have to deal with it. And if we don't deal with it right now, it may not be something that we can deal with.